Hey, what's going on? My name is Austin Iuliano. I'm a public speaker, and today I'm going to react to one of the top motivational commencement speeches on YouTube, and I'm hoping we can break down what techniques and strategies worked and what you can take from this speech when you're writing your own motivational speech. Now, I've never seen this clip before, this video before, and somebody recommended it to me, so let's just jump right into it. This is the University of Texas at Austin 2014 commencement address by Admiral William H. McRaven.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, thank you, President Powers, Provost Fenves, deans, members of the faculty, family and friends, and most importantly, the class of 2014. It is indeed an honor for me to be here tonight. It's been almost 37 years to the day that I graduated from UT. I remember a lot of things about that day. I remember I had a throbbing headache from a party the night before.
That's a really great technique. Right away, he's engaging with the target audience. When you're giving your motivational speech, you have to speak with them. Now, in another video, I talked about writing motivational speech. You use an end method. As time goes on, you connect with them, do a bunch of bonding, and bring that speech up. Maybe pivot, turn if there's a big moment that really is critical, and then bringing it back up again with the Dark Night of the Soul. I'll give you a link in the description for that speech, but right there, he connected with the audience. You know, 37 years ago, I had a throbbing headache. Fantastic, I love it.
I remember I had a serious girlfriend, who I later married. That's important to remember, by the way. And I remember I was getting commissioned in the Navy that day. But of all the things I remember, I don't have a clue who the commencement speaker was, and I certainly don't remember anything they said. So acknowledging that fact, if I can't make...
Okay, that was awesome. Very advanced technique is using the rule of 3. Basically, when you state something or tell a story, you do it 3 times. The repetition creates a memory, it makes it stronger, but more than that, it actually engages the viewer, the listener, much stronger. So he did a rule of 3. 3 things he remembered back in the day. He remembered having that hangover where he connected with the audience. He remembered his wife, meeting his wife, which is super important, and it's a nice way for him to be like, hey, look, you know, I'm a human being too. And then the Navy, which is addressing the fact that he is an admiral, okay? But then he turned it into a joke, which using humor in your speeches is so good. He was like, I don't remember the commencement speaker, you know, and that's probably what's going to happen with these people. Well, maybe not, since this is the #1 YouTube video.
Make this commencement speech memorable, I will at least try to make it short. So the university's slogan is, what starts here changes the world. Well, I've got to admit, I kind of like it. What starts here changes the world. Tonight, there are almost 8,000 students, or there are more than 8,000 students graduated from UT. So that great paragon of analytical rigor, ask.com.
Okay, so one of the things when you're writing a motivational speech is you need to have a core fundamental message that is throughout the entire speech. It's called a through line. If you want to learn more about this, there's a great book by Chris Anderson on TED Talks, how to create a TED Talk. He's the CEO of TED, and he talks about creating a through line. I believe he just gave his through line, changing the world. What starts here changes the world. I don't know, but it sounds like he just hit on that, and that's what it's going to happen.
It says that the average American will meet 10,000 people in their lifetime. 10,000 people, that's a lot of folks. But if every one of you changed the lives of just 10 people, and each one of those people changed the lives of another 10 people, and another 10, then in 5 generations, 125 years, the class of 2014 will have changed the lives of 800 million people. 800 million people. Think about it. Over twice the population of the United States. Go 1 more generation, and you can change the entire population of the world, 8 billion people. If you think it's hard to change the lives of 10 people, change their lives forever, you're wrong. I saw it happen every day in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Okay, Great technique he just used here. So he starts by giving the statistic. And the thing is, using statistics is really difficult when you're giving a speech because numbers are something that we don't connect with emotionally. Even though he broke it down to 10 people, that's all you have to change. And in a number of generations, 800 million, that's too big, that's too abstract. So what he's doing now is he's taking that idea of changing 10 people's lives and he's bringing it to a story, a personal story. Fantastic technique. I can't wait to hear this.
A young Army officer makes a decision to go left instead of right down a road in Baghdad, and the 10 soldiers with him are saved from a close-in ambush. In Kandahar province, Afghanistan, a non-commissioned officer from the female engagement team senses that something isn't right and directs the infantry platoon away from a 500-pound IED, saving the lives of a dozen soldiers. But if you think about it, not only were those soldiers saved by the decisions of one person, but their children were saved, and their children's children. Generations were saved by one decision, one person. But changing the world can happen anywhere, and anyone can do it. So what starts here can indeed change the world.
He didn't use the rule of 3 there, which I thought he was going to do, but he gave 2 fantastic stories, and they were succinct, making a left instead of a right, changing 10 people's lives right there. Having a funny feeling, making a gut decision, changing their lives, and then he brought it back to its generations of changes. That's a great callback mechanism. Fantastic storytelling. Okay, I want to go back a sec just to get back in the flow.
Can indeed change the world, but the question is, what will the world look like after you change it? Well, I'm confident that it will look much, much better. But if you'll humor this old sailor for just a moment, I have a few suggestions that may help you on your way to a better world. And while these lessons were learned during my time in the military, I can assure you that it matters not whether you ever served a day in uniform. It matters not your gender, your ethnic or religious background, your orientation, or your social status. Our struggles in this world are similar, and the lessons to overcome those struggles and to move forward, changing ourselves and changing the world around us, will apply equally to all.
Another advanced technique. So this guy clearly has had some public speaking training, but once he gave the stories and he did the callback to the overall message, he re-hit the through line, changing the world. Then what he did is he said, imagine what it's going to be like, or something along those lines. So now what he did is he had the listeners already engage further by going into their mind's eye, and he's telling the story, and he goes, here are lessons I've learned, bringing it back to him. Oh, and he's really great with his cadence and his rhythm. I love it.
I've been a Navy SEAL for 36 years, but it all began when I left UT for basic SEAL training in Coronado, California. Basic SEAL training is 6 months of long, torturous runs in the soft sand, midnight swims in the cold water off San Diego, obstacle courses, unending calisthenics, days without sleep, and always being cold, wet, and miserable. It is 6 months of being constantly harassed by professionally trained warriors who seek to find the weak of mind and body and eliminate them from ever becoming a Navy SEAL. But the training also seeks to find those students who can lead in an environment of constant stress, chaos, failure, and hardships. To me, basic SEAL training was a lifetime of challenges crammed into 6 months. So here are the 10 lessons I learned from basic SEAL training that hopefully will be of value to you as you move forward in life.
Great. This was great. He's setting up the context of the 10 lessons. It's a number that you can remember. 10 tips, 10 lessons that I learned from basic SEALs training. Another thing that is really interesting is he's talking about the conflicts he runs into with basic SEALs training. And the thing is, conflict is the most important part of any sort of speech because conflict creates everything that drives the character, the story, the emotions. Think about any movie you've ever watched. The thing that grabs our attention is the conflict that is set up for the protagonist. He just said 6 months of constant conflict, and now he's going to talk about that conflict and what he learned from it. I'm Oh, this is going to be good.
Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another.
It's true.
And another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made.
Yeah.
That you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed.
Fantastic. This was a great little mini story he told with a little bit of conflict, which resulted in the lesson being learned. Great formula. If you're writing speeches, if you're telling stories, use that formula. Here is the conflict, and here is the lesson that I learned. I love it. Also, it's true. There's another great speech that I heard from Will Smith talking about building a wall. His father made him build a wall, him and his brother. And he looked at his father and he's like, I don't know how to build a wall, right? I don't know how to do this. And his father said, it's really simple. And I'm paraphrasing this entire thing, but you lay the most perfect brick you can lay. And you do that over and over and over again. And then you will have a wall. In life, it is no different. Every little thing you do, if you work on doing it the best you possibly can, and you give it your all, it will stack and it will build. Stack and it will build. You don't create 1 million followers overnight. You don't create going viral overnight. You don't create going from homeless to on Forbes like I did. It's little steps, micro decisions, different actions, just showing up. Love it. Love it. Great story.
During SEAL training, the students are all broken down into boat crews. Each crew is 7 students, 3 on each side of a small rubber boat, and 1 coxswain to help guide the dinghy. Every day, your boat crew forms up on the beach.
He's using the same formula.
And is instructed to get through the surf zone and paddle several miles down the coast. In the winter, the surf off San Diego can get to be 8 to 10 feet high, and it is exceedingly difficult to paddle through the plunging surf unless everyone digs in. Every paddle must be synchronized to the stroke count of the coxswain. Everyone must exert equal effort, or the boat will turn against the wave and be unceremoniously dumped back on the beach. For the boat to make it to its destination, everyone must paddle. You can't change the world alone. You will need some help. And to truly get from your starting point to your destination takes friends, colleagues, the goodwill of strangers, and a strong coxswain to guide you. If you want to change the world, find someone to help you paddle.
Again, the same formula. Context, opposition, lesson. Context, opposition, lesson. You're going to hear that 7 more times, 8 more times. It's going to be fantastic. I love this speech. The other great thing about this is each one of these stories seems so simple, seems like simple life lessons that we know. But the thing is, you don't have to have a crazy story to be a powerful story. These simple truths are the things that connect with others. So he's going back to something he knows, which can be applied anywhere. If you want to do anything in life, You need people around you supporting you. And the best way to do that is to support others. Find people who are on the same journey and go on it together. Love it.
Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers. Several times a week,
Love it.
the instructors would line up the class and do a uniform inspection. It was exceptionally thorough. Your hat had to be perfectly starched, your uniform immaculately pressed, your belt buckle shiny and void of any smudges. But it seemed that no matter how much effort you put into starching your hat or pressing your uniform or polishing your belt buckle, it just wasn't good enough. The instructors would find something wrong. For failing the uniform inspection, the student had to run, fully clothed, into the surf zone, then wet from head to toe, roll around on the beach until every part of your body was covered with sand. The effect was known as a sugar cookie. You stayed in the uniform the rest of the day, cold, wet, and sandy. There were many a student who just couldn't accept the fact that all their efforts were in vain, that no matter how hard they tried to get the uniform right, it went unappreciated. Those students didn't make it through training. Those students didn't understand the purpose of the drill. You were never going to succeed. You were never going to have a perfect uniform. The instructors weren't going to allow it. Sometimes, no matter how well you prepare or how well you perform, you still end up as a sugar cookie. It's just the way life is sometimes.
Oh my God, these life lessons are fantastic. That is exactly the point of the training of the exercise, and that is exactly true in life. I think it's Star Trek. There's a quote that is like, you can do everything right and still fail. That's called life.
It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life.
It's true. Like, you can show up, you can do your best, you can do everything right and still fail. That is life. That is sucks. Yes, get up and keep going.
If you want to change the world, get over being a sugar cookie and keep moving forward. Every day during training, you were challenged with multiple physical events: long runs, long swims, obstacle courses, hours of calisthenics, something designed to test your mettle. Every event had standards, times you had to meet. If you failed to meet those times, those standards, your name was posted on a list, and at the end of the day, those on the list were invited to a circus. A circus was 2 hours of additional calisthenics, designed to wear you down, to break your spirit, to force you to quit. No one wanted a circus. A circus meant that for that day, you didn't measure up. A circus meant more fatigue, and more fatigue meant that the following day would be more difficult, and more circuses were likely. But at some time during SEAL training, everyone made the circus list. But an interesting thing happened to those who were constantly on the list. Over time, those students who did 2 hours of extra calisthenics got stronger and stronger.
Yes.
The pain of the circuses built inner strength and physical resiliency. Life is filled with circuses. You will fail. You will likely fail often. It will be painful. It will be discouraging. At times, it will test you to your very core. But if you want to change the world, Don't be afraid of the circuses.
Love it. Before he gets into the next story, here's a challenge. There's always going to be something that comes up in your life where you're feeling, I am spent energetically, I am tapped, I am done. Physically, I am tapped, I am done. Give yourself the gift of pushing for 15 to 30 minutes more. Even though it's hard, even though it's strenuous, that little extra effort makes a huge difference. There's a story about NASA engineers calculating the first trajectory to the moon. And basically, they have one shot at going from the Earth to the moon. And if you were just like 1 to 3 millimeters off in distance for your aim, over that long period of time, you can just completely bypass your target. So giving yourself that little extra effort every single day builds so much strength, it's ridiculous. So don't expect yourself to be a Herculean monster overnight. Just push yourself. Give yourself one more rep, one more task done off your list, 15 minutes more of cramming for your schoolwork. Just that little extra effort every single day.
At least twice a week, the trainees were required to run the obstacle course. The obstacle course contained 25 obstacles, including a 10-foot wall, a 30-foot cargo net, a barbed wire crawl, to name a few. But the most challenging obstacle was the slide for life. It had a 3-level, 30-foot tower at one end and a 1-level tower at the other. In between was a 200-foot-long rope. You had to climb the 3-tiered tower, and once at the top, you grabbed the rope, swung underneath the rope, and pulled yourself hand over hand until you got to the other end. The record for the obstacle course had stood for years when my class began in 1977. The record seemed unbeatable until one day a student decided to go down the slide for life head first. Instead of swinging his body underneath the rope and inching his way down, he bravely mounted the top of the rope and thrust himself forward. It was a dangerous move, seemingly foolish and fraught with risk. Failure could mean injury and being dropped from the course. Without hesitation, the student slid down the rope perilously fast. Instead of several minutes, it only took him half that time. And by the end of the course, he had broken the record. If you want to change the world,
yes,
sometimes you have to slide down the obstacles head first.
Oh my God, that is so true. Little story. When I was homeless, the one thing that changed where I was, well, two things. One was switching my mentality to exactly what he's talking about, changing literally every decision I made and coming at life completely differently. But the second thing was jumping headfirst into the things that scared the ever-living shit out of me. If it made me nervous, I went, I'm going to be the person that conquers that fear. So for me, one of the things that made me insanely nervous was jumping into live streaming. But on my first live stream that I jumped into, I ended up having 3,000 concurrent people watching me at one time. And that fundamentally changed how I approached life. Because having 3,000 people watch you while you're homeless is a massive opportunity, and it just grew from there. So finding those things that scare you and running as fast as you can towards them gives you so much strength. It is ridiculous. I love this guy. Oh my God.
During the land warfare phase of training, the students are flown out to San Clemente Island, which lies off the coast of San Diego. The waters off San Clemente are a breeding ground for the great white sharks. To pass SEAL training, there are a series of long swims that must be completed. One is the night swim. Before the swim, the instructors joyfully brief the students
trying to instill fear
on all the species of sharks that inhabit the waters off San Clemente. They assure you, however, that no student has ever been eaten by a shark, at least not that they can remember. But you are also taught that if a shark begins to circle your position, stand your ground. Do not swim away. Do not act afraid. And if the shark, hungry for a midnight snack, darts towards you, then summons up all your strength and punch him in the snout, and he will turn and swim away. There are a lot of sharks in the world. If you hope to complete the swim, you will have to deal with them. So if you want to change the
Love
world,
it.
don't back down from the sharks.
Jordan Peterson has a lecture out where he talks about the different metrics that showcase the chance of you being successful. And one of those metrics is a lack of being agreeable. Being somebody who is not super agreeable is actually a really good metric for you being successful, because not being agreeable means you will stand your ground and you will punch that shark in the nose. And sometimes in life, you have to stand your ground and you have to punch that bully, that shark, that obstacle in the face.
As Navy SEALs, one of our jobs is to conduct underwater attacks against enemy shipping. We practice this technique extensively during training. The ship attack mission is where a pair of SEAL divers is dropped off outside an enemy harbor and then swims well over 2 miles underwater, using nothing but a depth gauge and a compass to get to the target. During the entire swim, even well below the surface, there is some light that comes through. It is comforting to know that there is open water above you. But as you approach the ship, which is tied to a pier, the light begins to fade. The steel structure of the ship blocks the moonlight. It blocks the surrounding street lamps. It blocks all ambient light. To be successful in your mission, you have to swim under the ship and find the keel, the center line, and the deepest part of the ship. This is your objective. But the keel is also the darkest part of the ship, where you cannot see your hand in front of your face, where the noise from the ship's machinery is deafening, and where it gets to be easily disoriented, and you can fail. Every SEAL knows that under the keel, at that darkest moment of the mission, is a time when you need to be calm, when you must be calm, when you must be composed, when all your tactical skills, your physical power, and your inner strength must be brought to bear. If you want to change the world, you must be your very best in the darkest moments. The 9th week of training is referred to as Hell Week. It is 6 days of no sleep, constant physical and mental harassment, and one special day at the Mud Flats. The Mud Flats are an area between San Diego and Tijuana where the water runs off and creates the Tijuana Sloughs, a swampy patch of terrain where the mud will engulf you. It is on Wednesday of Hell Week that you paddle down to the Mud Flats and spend the next 15 hours trying to survive this freezing cold, the howling wind, and the incessant pressure to quit from the instructors. As the sun began to set that Wednesday evening, my training class, having committed some egregious infraction of the rules, was ordered into the mud. The mud consumed each man till there was nothing visible but our heads. The instructors told us we could leave the mud if only 5 men would quit. Only 5 men, just 5 men, and we could get out of the oppressive cold. Looking around the mud flat, it was apparent that some students were about to give up. It was still over 8 hours till the sun came up. 8 more hours of bone-chilling cold. The chattering teeth and the shivering moans of the trainees were so loud, it was hard to hear anything. And then one voice began to echo through the night. One voice raised in song. The song was terribly out of tune, but sung with great enthusiasm. One voice became 2, and 2 became 3, and before long, everyone in the class was singing. The instructors threatened us with more time in the mud if we kept up the singing, but the singing persisted. And somehow the mud seemed a little warmer, and the wind a little tamer, and the dawn not so far away. If I have learned anything in my time traveling the world, it is the power of hope. The power of one person, a Washington, a Lincoln, King, Mandela, and even a young girl from Pakistan, Malala. One person can change the world by giving people hope. So if you want to change the world, start singing when you're up to your neck in mud.
I don't know if you can tell. This is literally bringing tears to my eyes right now. But it's fantastic. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Give people hope. Start singing, start clapping, start beating your own drum, changing the world. Go out there and bring people together. Make the world a better place, and you will build and you will grow. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you for recommending this to me.
Finally, in SEAL training, there's a bell. A brass bell that hangs in the center of the compound for all the students to see. All you have to do to quit is ring the bell. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to be in the freezing cold swims. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to do the runs, the obstacle course, the PT, and you no longer have to endure the hardships of training. All you have to do is ring the bell to get out. If you want to change the world, don't ever, ever ring the bell.
I didn't even realize he was doing this, but at the end of each story, he was saying, if you want to change the world. He keeps going back to that through line. He's mentioned it in the beginning, and he keeps referencing it. If you want to change the world, here are 10 things you can learn to absolutely fundamentally change your life and change the world. And he's telling these great stories. Context, conflict, lesson. Context, conflict, lesson. Context, conflict, lesson. Every single time. Now he's at the conclusion. This has been this is a 19-minute video, and he's at 18 and a half minutes. So he's like basically done, a minute left. Your conclusion doesn't have to be massive.
To the class of 2014, you are moments away from graduating. Moments away from beginning your journey through life. Moments away from starting to change the world for the better. It will not be easy. But you are the class of 2014, the class that can affect the lives of 800 million people in the next century. Start each day with a task completed. Find someone to help you through life. Respect everyone. Know that life is not fair and that you will fail often. But if you take some risks, step up when the times are the toughest, face down the bullies, lift up the downtrodden, and never, ever give up. If you do these things, the next generation and the generations that follow will live in a world far better than the one we have today. And what started here will indeed have changed the world for the better. Thank you very much. Hook 'em horns.
Oh, Lord. This guy definitely did some work with Toastmasters. I would bet. I would put money on it. He used a really simple formula when writing a speech. Tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them. At the beginning of the speech, he brought up, hey, this is what it's going to be. Lessons I learned, 10 lessons I learned from Navy SEALs. Each lesson was the same thing. It was context, conflict, lesson. And then at the end, he did a fantastic recap. So if you're looking to write your own motivational speech, tell your own motivational speech, tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them as an outline for your speech. Then when you're going through your points, each point has to go through that through line. It has to make sense to the overall speech structure. You're only telling one lesson throughout this whole thing. How to change the world. Here are 10 things to how to change the world and make it a better place. And then use context, conflict, lesson. This is a fantastic speech. I love it. Thank you so much for recommending this to me. If you guys have any other speeches, any other motivational videos you see that you want me to break down, leave a comment with what it is. Thank you so much. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all of those things. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next video.